Hello, everyone. I'm Leslie Rohde, and welcome back to another episode of Ask the Lawyers. We have a tough issue to talk about today. That's the sexual abuse crisis in the Boy Scouts of America. We're thankful, though, we have an expert to share some insight on this topic with us today, attorney Stewart Eisenberg of Eisenberg Rothweiler in Philadelphia. Welcome, Stewart.
Thank you, Leslie. Glad to be here.
For those who may not know a lot about this issue, can you give us a summary of the issue at hand?
Well, the sexual abuse crisis, and I call it a crisis because it is, in the Boy Scouts has been going on for a long time. The Boy Scouts were created by an act of Congress in the early 1900s, and they've been keeping files on sexual abuse victims and sexual predators in their midst since 1910. So that's, over 100 years of records that they've kept. And so we know that sexual abuse of minors has gone on since that time. So there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of children who have been abused over the years. We've become involved in the most recent crisis primarily because the Boy Scouts announced almost a year ago that they were considering filing for bankruptcy. So as a result, victims and survivors could lose their rights if they don't come forward once the Boy Scouts declare bankruptcy. So it's been a long history of abuse that's occurred in the Boy Scouts, and children have suffered tremendously, and as adults they've suffered as well.
Can you tell us more about, I know you have been, as you mentioned, involved in this. What type of experiences with cases there have you been dealing with there at your firm?
Well, we originally were dealing just with individual cases, one case at a time. We've had them over the years. We've represented people who have survived sexual abuse in the Boy Scouts. But early this year, we decided to establish and go forth with a campaign to inform the public about what was going on, because many people don't know that the Boy Scouts were considering bankruptcy, and many people, and we find this in a lot of sexual abuse cases, are fearful of coming forward, fearful, embarrassed, humiliated, whatever the reasons are. That it takes them a very long time to come to grips with something like this, and they have a difficult time coming forward. So we put out a public service announcement beginning in February of this year, and we were surprised, but probably not fully surprised, but surprised at the response to that announcement. And we've received hundreds and hundreds of calls and have been able to represent now over 1,300 victims throughout the country. So our law firm, along with two others, have established a group called Abused in Scouting. And that's something that is almost a movement, because these men, and they are generally men, I don't think we have any women who have been abused. But the men who have come to us are really encouraged and comforted by the fact that they're not the only ones that this has happened to. And that's a lot of times another reason why people don't come forward, that this is a group of abuse survivors who have banded together and said to the Boy Scouts, enough is enough.
I can see how feeling like you're alone would be a challenge in coming forward. So it is good to know that you are not alone in these cases. I want everyone to understand a little bit more about the possible filing of bankruptcy by the Boy Scouts and how this campaign is helping spread the word, how it would affect a possible victim.
Well, the bankruptcy filing would stop any lawsuits that are out there, and we call it a stay. And every claim would then be evaluated and determined in the bankruptcy court. So if the Boy Scouts go bankrupt, all of everyone's claim would be decided in the bankruptcy court. If they don't file bankruptcy, then we're prepared to file the cases around the country. We have already filed one case here in Philadelphia. We're getting ready to file many more. There are a number of states who have opened up windows: New York, New Jersey, California, and others are considering it. Windows to lift the statute of limitations from those whose claims are barred by statute of limitations, which many, and the majority of cases are, if there were no windows and if there were no exceptions to the statute of limitations. So bankruptcy has a lot of effect, either declaring bankruptcy or not declaring bankruptcy, because they are considering it. And if there are more lawsuits filed, that would probably be even more reason for them to declare bankruptcy. So we've had talks with the Boy Scouts generally, and they won't tell us when they intend to file bankruptcy, or even whether they're going to file bankruptcy. So they're still evaluating that process.
Stewart, this has to be tough emotionally to deal with some of these clients, these victims, people who may get the courage to come to you, but they've been afraid for a long time to speak up. How would you encourage others who may see this, who have been in, maybe not in a circumstance even with the Boy Scouts, but in a similar circumstance, and they're just too afraid to come forward?
Well, they have to understand that that's a normal feeling and a normal emotion that people feel when they've been abused, certainly as children, that they don't want to come forward, that they feel maybe it's their fault, that their parents will be upset, that they don't want their families to know, that a lot of these men are married, have children, are working. They don't want people in their workplace to know. So what I can say is that from the people that I've spoken to, it's a relief for them. It's something that they've held inside all their lives, whether they're 40 years old, 60 years old, 80 years old. And we have someone who's 90 years old that we represent. So you can see that, and this is the first time that some of these men have been able to talk about it. And it is a relief, and it's very emotional. And a lot of times people will see our commercial or our public service announcement, and they don't want to come forward. And then they see it again, and then again. And finally, after maybe the third or fourth time, they say, you know what, I'm going to make a call. And we're here to listen. We're here to listen. We're here to tell you what your rights are, and we're here to be of help to you in recovery, because this is really, this whole coming forward and telling your story is part of the recovery. We've had clients who have gone on TV, have been interviewed by Time Magazine, the New York Times, and they've really told incredible stories and brought this to light and really exposed what's happening in the Boy Scouts.
And helped other people in the process, I'm sure. And I would assume your message to people watching would also be, it's not too late. It's never too late to reach out to your firm.
No, it's never too late, and that's another reason why we talked about bankruptcy, because if they do declare bankruptcy, then there will be a time period, and we call it a bar date. It may be 6 months, it may be 9 months, it may be 3 months. We don't know what it's going to be once they declare bankruptcy, for everyone to come forward and file their claim. And if they don't do it within that time period, then they can't recover any compensation for the devastating injuries and emotional trauma that they've suffered.
Tough issue to talk about, Stewart. But Stewart Eisenberg, thank you as always for shedding some light on this for us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to all of you for watching this episode of Ask the Lawyers. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you won't miss another episode. I'm Leslie Rohde for AskTheLawyers.com, where you can choose a lawyer that lawyers choose.